Listening into that, Grant Harrold, a former royal butler and now a royal and British etiquette consultant. Should I call you Mr. Harrold then?
Good morning, mate. No, call me Grant.
Okay, if that's okay with you. I don't want to overstep the mark. Is the Queen posh?
Do you know, it's funny. Everyone asks me that question. And I mean, posh, it's such a funny word.
So what is your definition then of posh? Because I think if you are posh or perceived as posh, whatever that is, it probably stems from your schooling and education.
Yes, I mean, a lot of it's to do with the way people are sometimes brought up. Whether you, depending on the education, depending on where you've been brought up, depending on your also your background. I mean, some people are brought up in palaces or stately homes. Some people are brought up in two up, two down kind of houses. So again, a lot of that can, you know, your social background seems to have quite a lot to do with it. But I always say to people, you know, there's a lot of well-to-do people, posh, whatever you want to call it, and that I know, and people who are not that I know. And I always think it comes down to how they behave. You know, manners is a big part of it, I think. And
your values presumably play a part in it.
I think so. I mean,
it's what you think and believe in.
I think so. I mean, you can meet people that have got all the money in the world, and they can be really rude, and that really annoys me. But then you can meet somebody who's got no penny to their name, and has got, you know, is absolutely shows you all the kind of common decencies.
Yeah. Have we still got a class system in this country?
I think we do. It's such a. I know it's quite a tricky kind of subject because a lot of people have obviously got different views on it. Sadly, yes, we do. I say sadly, but I think it's always been there. It's never gone. I think a couple of years ago they said that we've now got, is it seven different grades now or something?
7?
I think so. I think there's 7 different grades now to the class system, which confuses me, and I don't know where you would even put anybody into that. But originally it was obviously the upper, middle and lower classes, which was it was very straightforward. If you were the upper class, you lived in the stately home, and if you were the lower class, you probably were in the workshops or in the factories. And
how do you know which class you're in then?
I think it is to do with your background. I think it's to do with where you live, and they say who you socialise with, and well, apparently also money's got a big part of it. Obviously, again going back to the posh bit, you know, if you've got the money to kind of go on a cruise ship and actually choose which side to go on, you've obviously you've got to have that kind of wealth behind it, I think.
And of course, politicians are falling foul of this at the moment, aren't they? Whether they're posh or not.
Yes, I think they probably don't want to be seen as, you know, they probably want to be seen as all of us. I mean, I know quite a few politicians who I would say are not posh. They don't pretend to be, and they're the ones that are probably very much in touch with everybody. But then on saying that, I know politicians who have probably got a lot of money, and again, they can be just as much in touch with people.
So why do we ridicule posh then in this country? Why don't we want to be posh?
I think it's just a bit of fun. I think you know, I think we all kind of you know, you look at the magazines or you read something, or there's a cartoon and it's got the posh characters or something. I think it's a tradition of Britain. I think this is something that we've always had this class system, the posh people, and I think that's a big part of what Britain's all about.
And of course, you know, any number of situation comedies over the years in this country. You know, I'm thinking of going right back to The Good Life, and, you know, Margot and Jerry. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, yes, I do. But also, you think about John Cleese and Ronnie Corbett. You know, they did a couple of sketches.
Oh, I'm looking down on you. There was that
yeah,
one, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were making the joke being it was to do with your height more than the background. So we've always had this kind of this fun, and every now and again it comes up. And like with Tata last night, I noticed there was a lot of tweets where people were discussing it, and I think people were shocked at some of the things they were saying. The pound shop thing, that shocked me, because it was actually, if you want to call it, posh people introduced me to the pound shop. So I found that quite interesting, because I thought every posh person in Britain knows where the pound shops are.
Can you hold on for a couple of minutes?
Of course I can.
I want to talk to you a bit more in just a moment. Dan's got the latest travel news. Morning, Dan.
Morning, looking pretty good out there at the moment. No accidents to report. Just the usual bits of congestion building up on the inbound side of the A689 coming into the Wolverstone roundabouts in the A19. It is moving a little slowly on Cole Lane. Also in the A174, not the Parkway. It's actually coming away from the Parkway roundabout, heading out towards Ingleby. That's moving quite congested on our screens. Apart from that, all the main routes looking good in the northeast. No major delays on public transport. We'll have more news in half an hour. If you can update me in the meantime, though, give me a ring on 0800 854 833.
Keeping Teesside, County Durham and North Yorkshire
on the move.
BBC Tees.
We're just talking about class at the moment. How do you know which class you're in? And is there still a class system in this country? So we've got Grant Harrold on the line, former Royal Butler, now a Royal and British etiquette consultant, joined now by Davy Hopper, the General Secretary of the Durham Miners Association. Davy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Which social class are you in, Davy?
Well, I think I'm in one of the lower ranks of the 7. I would just class myself as an ordinary working class person.
And do you think, what would your definition of posh be, Davy?
Posh to me, it would be somebody who, when the William Tell Overture, doesn't think of the Tonto and the Lone Ranger. They would be posh.
Is it to do with where you went to school?
I think a lot of it has to do with where you were brought up, where you went to school, what type of education you were in, and I think that determines a person's thinking and his way of life and how he reacts, yes.
But can you move through the system? You know, if you get a good job...
I think some people can attempt to move through the system, but I don't think they're ever fully accepted by the establishment. I mean, Britain invented class, and, the House of Lords, the privilege and power, it's class-ridden. I've got a son in Australia who I've visited a couple of times, and I didn't see any semblance of class in Australia, which, after all, was almost entirely brought up initially from British people.
Yeah, I've yet to go to Australia, Davy. So when you say there's no class system, just explain to me what you mean.
Well, I think everybody is treated on merit, and everybody is treated as an equal. You don't see these ceremonies with the pomp and the uniforms and people dressed up out of the dark ages, I think it's just a society where people accept society. But
there will, like any other country, though, Davy, there will be people with more money than others.
I don't think money is the total determinant factor in class. I think it's privilege and power, really. And obviously a person's ambition.
But there'll be people in Australia, Davy, that have got more power than other people. So surely that...
Well, Murdoch for one.
Yeah.
And Parr.
Well, surely that puts them into a different class then than most other Australians.
I would think the Australians look upon them with a little bit disdain, but I wouldn't say they were class. I mean, when you look in Britain and you see butlers and which no disrespect to the man who's a butler, they're looking after these big mansions of houses and running about, and certainly in my opinion, in a fairly subservient way, looking after these people who are the ruling class, really. And the establishment, I remember Parrington, the coal owners at Weymouth, where I was brought up. I mean, he used to ride about in a horse and trap, hit people with a whip if they were in his road. In the cricket, what they would have when Parrington's 11 would play the coal miners' 11, Parrington's team would come out with stripy blazers on and stripy caps and come out of the stately home. And the miners would come onto the welfare from the pavilion, which was just a wooden hut. It was an epitome of we are we and you are you.
And Davey, on the other line, we've got Grant Harrold then, who's a former Royal Butler. He's now an etiquette consultant. So what class do you think Grant is probably in?
Oh, Grant is a very low class. I mean, they're just using him. I don't think Grant's in a very high class. I mean, I'm a Republican myself, and I wouldn't do that job for all the money in China.
What do you say to that, Grant?
No, I actually agree with David. I never put myself in any. I always avoid putting myself into any class. I mean, my background, all my grandparents were in private. Well, most of them in private service. So our background is very, very kind of plain and simple and brilliant upbringing. So I can't complain.
And we've been talking about accents as well this morning, Grant, on the show, whether having a strong Teesside accent can hold you back.
I can't really talk, can I? Because I'm being Scottish. I get a lot of comments about my accent. I don't think any accent holds anybody back. I mean, I think the fact somebody actually, wrote in and sent money, I think it's very rude to do that. I mean, you wouldn't say to somebody, you've got an awful accent. You might think it, but you certainly wouldn't say it to somebody. But I think we're all unique. We're all got our own dialects and the way we talk, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And Davy Hopper, finally to you, do you think the way we speak determines how people view our class?
I think it has a big effect on people's opinions of people, and I think because you maybe carry an accent like I do, a Sunderland accent, people tend to look down on you a little bit. You don't speak the Queen's English, I believe.
And will that ever change?
Well, it will not change as far as I'm concerned, because I really don't take care what people think about us. I have a job to do. I do my job. I live my life in the class of people I work with, and I'm quite happy.
Davy, good to talk to you. Davy Hopper, General Secretary of the Durham Miners Association, and Grant Harrold, former Royal Butler, now a Royal and British etiquette consultant.